first morning of 2 weeks off, and already the guilt was running. The projects I've been building on the side, the ones that might one day let me leave my job, felt like they were waiting, not patiently, the way a deadline waits, and everything else felt like indulgence. Reading felt like hiding. Even just going for a walk felt like stealing time from the things that actually matter, or the things I've decided should matter. Both were available. Neither felt allowed. I've started calling it rest guilt, the feeling that doing nothing is the same as doing something wrong. The loop works like this. You're tired, you stop. The guilt shows up, not loudly, just this low hum reminding you of everything you're not doing. So you reach for something, anything, not because you want to, but because sitting still feels worse than carrying on. Tiredness says stop. Guilt says, don't you dare. It eats at you quietly. Tiredness and guilt sound like opposites, but they both end the same way. You keep going. Either you push through the exhaustion, or you try to rest and can't stand the guilt. Same result, different engine. A psychologist in Germany, she's been studying this for over a decade, put it simply: what predicts whether you actually recover from stress isn't how many hours you rest. It's whether your mind actually stops. And for a lot of us, it doesn't. We're on the couch, watching something, technically off, but the mind is still running the list, still replaying that conversation from work, still scanning for what we forgot. Another group of researchers, 4 experiments, over 1,000 people, found that people who believed leisure was wasteful enjoyed it less and reported more depression, more anxiety, more stress. They tried showing participants evidence that leisure is productive, that it's good for focus, good for creativity. It didn't move the needle. The belief was stickier than the evidence. You can know rest is good for you and still not be able to enjoy it. So, where does this come from? The Greek word for leisure, schola, is what gave us school. The thing we now associate with deadlines and performance was originally a word for contemplation, for stillness. Somewhere between then and now, we inverted it completely. About 500 years ago, a branch of Protestant Christianity called Calvinism decided that hard work wasn't just practical. It was proof you were a good person. If you prospered, God was on your side. If you sat around doing nothing, that said something about your character. A sociologist called Max Weber traced how this specific idea spread way beyond the church, and he pointed out that in this worldview, wasting time was considered the worst possible sin. That particular theology mostly faded, but the guilt structure it left behind didn't. We just swapped the words. Calling became passion. God's favor became success. Different vocabulary, same logic underneath. Work proves your worth. Rest has to be earned. And then factories changed how we think about time itself. Before industrialization, work and rest weren't really separate. Your day had both, mixed together. But factories needed shifts and clocks. Time became something you sell by the hour. And once you see time that way, rest becomes something you're not selling. Every hour off starts to feel like lost money. The phrase free time is itself a tell. Time defined by its relationship to work, not to you. Nobody designed this. Nobody sat in a room and planned rest guilt. It's the residue of ideas that built up over centuries and then forgot where they came from. Understanding that won't fix anything on its own, but it changes the question you're asking, from what's wrong with me to where did this come from? Rest guilt costs more than rest. It hollows out your time off. The closer you get to going back to work, the less restful the remaining hours feel. Like a countdown draining value from each one. The last day or two, the pressure spikes. Monday approaching. You haven't done enough of something. Rest or projects, or both. You go back no more rested than when you left. Perhaps even less. It kills the things that aren't useful. Friendships that don't lead to networking. Hobbies that don't generate an income. Walking somewhere without a podcast. Anything without a visible output gets slowly squeezed out. Not because you don't value it, but because the guilt makes purposeless time feel like stolen time. And it can block the very thing it's supposedly pushing you toward. I've been designing a board game for a while. It matters to me. But the pressure I've built around it, the sense that I should be working on it, that every day I don't is a day wasted, has become so heavy I can barely start. The guilt creates urgency. The urgency creates paralysis. And the paralysis creates more guilt. A loop that feeds itself. It's not motivating me. It's freezing me. So, I started looking into what the research says about rest and recovery. And a few things surprised me. What seems to help isn't resting longer. It's resting differently. Activities that absorb you and feel distinct from work restore something that passive scrolling doesn't. But it has to be familiar. A walk in your neighborhood, cooking something you know by heart, playing an instrument you've played 100 times. Not a trip to a new city where you're navigating and planning and problem solving. That's a different flavor of effort. The recovery comes from change, not challenge. That same study, the one about believing leisure was wasteful, had a detail that caught me. The guilt didn't hit all rest equally. Things like exercise, or time with your kids, or hobbies that felt connected to who you are. People still enjoyed those, even the ones who believed rest was a waste of time. It was the purely aimless stuff, watching TV for no reason, just sitting around, where enjoyment collapsed, as if the guilt needs rest to be pointless before it can fully take hold. When I read that, I thought, okay, so the answer is to find purpose in your rest. Make it mean something. But honestly, I'm not sure that's quite right either. During those 2 weeks off, the moments that felt best weren't the ones where I'd found some clever justification for resting. They were the ones where I'd just stopped trying to justify it. One afternoon, I sat down and painted miniatures. Tiny figures, the kind you use for tabletop games. No reason, no audience, just paint and a small brush, and an afternoon I wasn't going to get back. And for about an hour, the noise in my head went quiet. Not gone, just quiet. I wasn't thinking about the channel or the board game or what I should be doing instead. I was just painting. I don't think that had purpose. I think I just forgot to ask whether it needed one. And there's something else. We've trained ourselves to believe that an empty moment is a wasted moment. But boredom is where ideas come from. Sitting with a coffee and staring out the window isn't laziness, especially if you're someone who makes things. That discomfort of wanting to fill the silence. If you sit with it, it passes, quicker than you'd think. And what's on the other side is usually quieter and more useful than anything you would have reached for. I keep waiting for the part where I tell you what I figured out. The thing that made the guilt stop. But I don't have that part. When I try to picture what genuine rest looks like, not the optimized version, not what I think it should look like. The simplest answer I can give is doing what I want, without guilt, without the need to rush. That sounds so small, but it feels unrealistic, not expensive, not complicated, just unrealistic. And I think that might be the most honest measure of how deep this goes. It does get lighter though. Once you see where the guilt comes from, once you stop mistaking it for truth, it loses some of its weight. Not all of it. It still comes back. But the fact that it moves means it can be practiced. Badly, imperfectly, with the guilt still running in the background. You keep going. You rest badly, and then a little less badly. And then, maybe one afternoon, you catch yourself painting something, or reading something, or just sitting somewhere, and you realize the guilt forgot to show up.